I'll tell you one of the interesting cases I saw one night. I was at the late night beef. That was my supper, and I was in there just sitting around talking, and went and sat down, and all of a sudden I see this guy walking toward me. He had Army PT on, and he came up and he said, hey, and he said, "You're a chaplain, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, let's go." He said, "Well, I'm an Army chaplain." But at some point you just said something wasn't right. Mm-hmm. And he sat down and we began to talk, and he had not been home. He had only been home. Let's rephrase this way. He had been home like 8 months in almost 3 years. He was fried. I mean, God love him. He tried. And we just sat there and talked for almost 2 hours. I put him in, I had a vehicle, and I took him back to his hooch and said, look, and the next morning, I tried to get, I did, and hopefully I think he got out. I went and told his folks, he said he needs to go home. Mm-hmm. He's not good, for himself. He's not good for us, because he was just, that's 3 years. He was, and then getting to go home just enough to get bad. And
Mm-hmm.
this is the thing that everybody forgets these days. War is so different. Our deployments are so different. The cell phone, the sat phone, the Zoom. Lisa and I had a deal. We did no video calls while I was in Iraq. We just couldn't handle it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't be there, but I could talk. So we called, and we had our phone time, and we'd do that. And I talked to the kids if the kids wanted to talk. They were younger then. But I watched, some of these folks that they were trying to still live two lives. They were, and you can't do that, and it's terrible.
Yeah. My wife called me. I was in Iraq, 2006, and my wife, sends me a message and says, "Hey, the kids want to see where you're sleeping." My kids were like, probably 3, 4, 3, 5, something like that, young kids. And hey, can you send a picture of where you're sleeping at night? And I was sleeping, in a little bed that was made out of plywood or whatever. And before I took the picture, I opened up a bag and pulled out a folder and took pictures of my family out and hung up the pictures around my bed, took the picture of where I slept, and then took the pictures back down, put them back in the folder, and put them away. Because same thing. I didn't want to be thinking about, look, obviously I love my family, but I didn't want to be thinking about my family when I've got to be thinking about the troops and my guys and the mission. And just didn't want to do it. And my wife and I were the same way. We would talk probably once a week on the phone for 10 minutes, and she'd tell me that the water heater broke and, whatever, but she, she was going to handle it. Yeah. And so I think that does make it very, very difficult. And the other thing is, and I think this is bad for the military, but the way we do deployments now, like in World War II, you were going until we win.
Gone or come home. Yep. I get it.
Yep. And that's just the way it is. And when you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, whatever that is, whether it's a year, whether it's 6 months, whatever it's going to be, if you can get to there, you can go home.
Yep.
And that does not seem like a great way to win wars. And by the way, we haven't won any wars with that particular procedor.
Well, think about it in Vietnam.
Yep.
They counted the 365.
Yep.
It became the whole thing, and how many got to that last 30. Mm-hmm. Or they it came up, and it's just an issue, and it's tough. And when you talk about this, it's not just deployments we've had and everything else. This translates into the very issues that we're seeing in my current job. This translates directly into how people are affected by that. You come home. It's almost like you're living these dual lives, and now you even get into it today when you have the quote remote control wars. Mm-hmm. You have the drones. You have the stuff that we use all the time. The unmanned aircraft, those kind of things like that. But there's still people behind those.
Oh yeah, I got a friend that back stateside killed a bunch of enemy fighters on a daily basis, and he'd go home for dinner.
Yeah.
And see his kids and, take his kids to the dance recital. And then the next day he's out killing people again. Yeah, that's a different situation. But, what does that do to the human mind?
Well, it does. And we're seeing some of and that was when, there's been a lot of discussion on the issues of that with, you say, well, you never left X place. But, we're seeing PTS, we're seeing that kind of thing because, sometimes they're, you look at this, they're doing this long term. This has become, sort of an invested kind of mission, if you would, to be very generic, but it's something that they do, and they have to do it every day, and then they have to cut that switch on and off. And I think that's a different. it's not something we've gotten to really a good handle on. How do you handle that? One of the areas that we're doing is we also have some of our shorter time frames now. We're doing everything we can to, we'll get you in for 4 years, we'll get you in for 3, 6 years, and the reality is all of our studies are showing today that and this is just an interesting look, that the shorter the in-service time, so the shorter, like the 4-year stint, the 6-year stint, even a lot shorter, are our most at risk later in life. It's not the 20. It's not those of us who've been in 24 years, and that it's those that, especially in the last 25 years, have come in. It still amazes me too, Jocko, how many people think that right now that we're at this quasi peace kind of stuff, and we don't have anybody anywhere. We got people all over the place, and you can just publicly look at the paper and look at that, but it's still going on. This ops tempo is high, and when they're in for 3 or 4 years in this high adrenaline, high impact environment, and then they go back out into the world, and the world is not high adrenaline. The world is not high impact. You don't have your buddies beside you. You're not have a common mission. You got to make choices again. We've not had a chance to sort of what I call, we break, build, but not mend. And so I think that's going to be the thing that we're having to really seriously look at. And it's not just, frankly, the newer veteran. That statistic holds through all the way to Vietnam. Really? And people who have unfortunately, chose death by suicide, even in their 50s, 60s, and older, there's that percentage, that very high percentage, had shorter-term enlistments and shorter-term service. So there's got to be something there, that you got to look at. It may not be this 1 + 1 = 2 kind of thing, but there's a 1.5 in there somewhere.
Got to put it in the calculus for sure. Now you're over in Balad, and clearly a lot of casualties are coming through there. Yeah. And although most of them live, a lot of those guys, they might live, but they got serious issues, major wounds, physical wounds, mental wounds, the whole 9 yards. And of course, not all of them make it. You just mentioned the Stars and Stripes with 5 guys on the paper there. As this was 2008 that you're there. We'd already been in Iraq for 5 years. As you weigh out, you got to see what this costs. Mm-hmm. And as you weigh that out, and as you look at what's going on in the world right now, it seems like we need to raise the bar quite a bit in terms of when we go to war.
Mm-hmm. I think so. I think what's disturbed me more as we go past this is what's happened in the end results, the out years. Okay, and sort of it's a good movie, a good book, good song always ends in a way that hooks you. I guess is the best way I can describe this, or it ends in a way that's fitting to the cause, and an end that doesn't fit sort of that whole area of how we're doing it. And I think that's the part that has become so disturbing for many of us. If I'm not mistaken, and it's a lot of time gone past, but it was less than 2.5 years after I left that we shut down Balad and turned it back over.
Yeah, pulled out. Yeah. I think it was 2010, 2011
time.
Yeah.
And I thought about that to myself. I'm saying about how much of our precious life was there.